Hello, folks. Just a wee quick one. I've had a few wee inquiries about, the nature of addiction and recovery. One guy I was talking to yesterday said to me that it's okay for other people. It's easier for other people to get into recovery, but sometimes it's not so easy for other people. And yes, he does have a point to a certain extent, but what might work for me in recovery might work for someone else in recovery, and what might work for her in recovery might not work for him in recovery, and it's the way it goes. But what I do notice about people who want to give up, say, taking drugs, and I always ask the question, well, if you're giving up drugs, do you have it in you at this point to sort of isolate yourself for a short period of time because you need to remove yourself from people, places, and things because it attaches around that. And, people will say, yes, some people will go for it. And usually they're the ones that I see who become successful because they're so focused in on the recovery, or sometimes you get people going, well, I don't really know, or it's my family, or it's people close to me. And it sort of creates a conundrum for them that they're stuck in a place where they really have to make a good solid decision about whether or not they want recovery. And then other people will say, but it's my group of friends. Sadly to say, if your group of friends are indulging in weekend warrior stuff, drinking, taking drugs, and you're going to be around them, you will eventually end up drinking and taking drugs if you're there in the company, because it's very hard to resist something that's sitting right in front of you. I can resist anything but temptation. That's what I was always told. Once you're tempted, it's really, really hard, especially if it's right there and it's accessible and it's just at the end of your fingertips. So yes, it is difficult coming into recovery. It is a lot of decision making, but I also see a lot of people coming to recovery and they want to stop taking drugs and they want to go to the gym and they want to do X, Y, and Z, and they want to move to the other side of the world, or they want to do whatever it is they want to do, but nobody really wants to look at how their thought patterns is really impacting upon all the decisions they're making. I heard a good explanation of the mind, the conscious mind and the subconscious mind the other day, and it goes like this. In your conscious mind, you're going to do everything. Seeing it comes to Monday, I'm never going to touch anything again. And come Monday evening, 6 o'clock, you're back doing what you said you wouldn't do anyway. That's your conscious mind is ready, it wants to do it. But your subconscious mind, which is your programming, which is the story that I always talk about, it lies below the surface. And that's the part that dictates whether you're going to be successful or you're not going to be successful. That's the part, I'll give you an example. Somebody walking about going, I don't really care what people think about me. But sadly, below that there, they really do care what people think about them. And that's their subconscious programming. If I do this wrong or if I do this wrong, everybody's going to be talking about me. And it's nearly down to the point of, who are you that everybody wants to talk about you? You just get caught up in that thought loop. So my advice to people who do want to go into recovery is you really need to look after your thought patterns. And then people go to me, well, how do you do that? How do you change your thinking? I've give a few wee examples of how I started changing my thinking, and one of them is you need to start writing. You need to start writing the value of not doing what you're doing, and you need to constantly turn it over in your head for days on end sometimes, just to get it to start floating about in your head. Because here's what happens: say you're 27 and you've been doing this for 27 years. You've 27 years of like a negative outlook or a negative sort of way of looking at what you're doing. And it's like you're stressed out, grab something to use. Somebody's getting married, use. Somebody dies, use. Somebody's crying, use. And that's just the way it goes. It's if you're in that sort of loop and that thought pattern, it's really hard to get out of it. The only way I found for me to change that was to constantly go over, write something out and constantly go over it and over it and over it till it started becoming the forefront of my mind, and it started, changing my thought patterns and giving me a chance in to grab on to recovery. You know, um, People have said to me too, about their mental health. Mental health stops them from getting into recovery. Actually, if you can get in through the doors of wherever you're seeking help, or you can get the first load of days together in your own head. Slowly but surely things start coming back together. Then, and only then, I would suggest to people is, if you've got serious mental health problems, deal with them while you've got a fresh, clear head. Because when you're using drugs and drinking constantly, your head's always going to tell you your mental health's down the tubes, you know. But most people who I talk to haven't experienced their mental health in a sober state of looking at it, you know what I mean? They haven't been sober enough to really look at what it is it's impacting and why it's impacting, you know. And, you know, a lot of people also think your mental health's just your head. Your mental health's a big part of your head, what you're thinking. But your mental health's also attached to what you're eating, who you surround yourself with, what you're watching on TV, what sort of music you're watching, what sort of stuff you're learning can impact your mental health massively. And more so if you are drinking and taking drugs, where you don't have that filter to try and keep that out. So if thoughts are coming in and telling you you're worthless and, you know, nobody would love you, nobody wants you anyway, it's going to be that wee bit harder to seek recovery. Whereas if you could start changing your thought patterns, you know, really, really looking and working in and trying to get some sort of, you know, positive thoughts to the forefront through the writing, you know, repeating it or writing a list out every day and adding to it the reasons why you shouldn't be using, and, you know, and you really keep working at that and keep working at that, and seek help from somebody who's been there before, who can help you on a daily basis, you know, give you a phone call once a day or meet up, you know, and give you pointers and tips on how to move forward, you know. Because like that guy said to me, recovery's not that easy for everybody, and it's not. It wasn't easy for me at the start, you know, and I thought my mental health was down the tubes until I got relatively sober, and then I started working on everything else, and eventually, you know, everything starts turning around, you know. And then I would also like to add another wee bit about, people would say, it's because of my trauma. It's because of my trauma I have to do this. Well, again, trauma is a reason why you use drugs. Trauma is a reason why you drink, you know, because you're using that reason to get yourself wiped out, or you're using that reason so nobody can really question you on it. And I know some people are going to come and go, it's a load of shit what you're saying, but think about this. If trauma was the cause of addiction, why is everybody in the world who's traumatized not an addict, or not taking drugs, or not drinking? You know, I heard a statistic the other day and it blew my mind. Out of 100 people who use or have addiction problems or substance misuse problems, whatever way you want to frame it, only 80% of the only 20% of the people seek actual help. 80% do it on their own, or they do it in another way, or through the help of family. So the statistics that we see is just for people who are using it on a daily basis. You know, 20% of people who use it on a daily basis. So it's not a very, very good statistic when you think about it, like, you know. But your traumas are the source of your pain and your anguish, and, you know, all the stuff that it brings up in you, which is probably why people started drinking and taking drugs. The reason why, once they started drinking and taking drugs, they realised that they get a momentarily break from what goes on in their heads. But what happens eventually is, the more you do it and the more your body gets used to what you're doing, then all them problems come seeping back. And then not only do you have the problems that you started with, you've also now got the problem of a substance misuse problem on top of it, you know. Guys, you know, my heart goes out to anybody that's struggling in this at the minute. But like I've said a million times, you know, I do a bit of coaching around people who are in heavy substance use, active addiction, whatever you want to call it. And I do a wee bit of coaching around how they're viewing it, their thoughts around it, and give them a few wee realities about it, you know. And believe me, most 80% of people who I actually help through this get it straight away, and it gives them them couple of wee facts that they can grab onto and start building, and before you know it, they're well in the recovery. So guys, I hope somebody gets something out of this here. You know, if you have any questions, if you have any queries, just drop me a wee message and I'll get straight back to you. Like, so always remember, guys, keep moving forward, keep putting one foot in front of the other, and keep looking after yourselves. Take care.